Greetings, Knob Noster community, parents, students, teachers, and taxpayers. My name is Jerrod Wheeler, Superintendent of Schools, and I'm here today to speak with you about Proposition K, which is a voter ballot initiative that will be on the April 2nd, 2024 ballot to support construction of a new Knob Noster High School Innovation Campus. Over the last several months, we've hosted a number of meetings with our community over coffee, some town hall meetings, lots of individual and small group meetings to talk about what is being proposed with Proposition K. If you are just now tuning in, I want to give you a little bit of a backstory on this proposition. This is something that began 8 years ago with our Board of Education as we looked to the future of what's going on in our community, at our installation, and across our state. And over the last 8 years, approximately 100 school board meetings, this has evolved into where we are today, which is placing this proposition on the ballot for our voters and our community to weigh in. We're very excited about this opportunity, and I'm here today to share with you the details of what is being proposed. For those who have joined us in our town hall meetings, we want to say thank you for your time and your engagement. We appreciate your input and feedback as we continue to move towards that April 2nd election. The goal of the town hall meetings, the coffee chats, and this presentation today is to provide information so that when our voters do go to the polls on April 2nd, that they feel confident and educated on how they cast their vote. The Board of Education has been very deliberate and strategic in placing this proposition together over these last 8 years. The board believes and the administration believes that this is a very good opportunity for our community, our installation, not just for today, but for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And we believe that the timing, while not maybe ideal, is the right timing for a lot of reasons, and we're going to talk about that. Again, we thank you for tuning in, and we'll get started. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of the proposition, we just kind of want to set the table for what's been going on in the school district over the last several years. We're very pleased to say that we have a trajectory of improvement, comprehensive improvement across the academic dashboard, and we have a couple of indicators that we would like to share that really tell the story of what's going on in our school district. First and foremost, as you can see topping the list, is the U.S. News and World Report annual report. This is a report that judges all of the high schools across our nation on the quality of education and the outcomes for students. I'm pleased to report for the last 5 years, Knob Noster High School has been named Missouri's #1 rural high school for college and career readiness for 5 years running. That is a great testament to what's going on in our classrooms at the high school, how our staff is doing, of course, the performance of our students, but it's not just about the high school. It takes a lot of work from preschool through elementary, middle school to high school to reach achievements like this. And we want to give a quick shout out to all of our students and teachers for the fantastic ongoing work that they're doing. Next on the list is the Military Child Education Coalition. We're proud to report that in 2017, 2019, and in 2021, the district received the National Pete Taylor Partnership of Excellence Award that really gave a acknowledgement to the type of relationship and partnership that exists between the Knob Noster School District and our leadership out at Wimer Air Force Base. To that point, on several different occasions over the last 3 to 4 years, Air University has reached out to Knob Noster School District to really lean in and see what is the recipe to our success here. We know that down at Maxwell, it's no secret there are some deep challenges down there, and they're looking across the country for partners and success stories to help them find their way. We've been able to be a good partner for them, and we're seeing great things going on down in Maxwell Air Force Base. Last but not least is Forbes on this list. If you missed it, a few years ago, our advanced manufacturing robotics team was called upon by the wing commander at Wimer Air Force Base for a partnership to manufacture a part that is now operational in all of the B-2 stealth bombers. So in a matter of 3 days and at $1.25 a copy, our robotics students produced a solution for a real-life issue in the world's most strategic aircraft. Again, that gives testament to some of the things going on here in the district. And then I want to throw in a more recent one, and this kind of leans more away from STEM programming into the arts. But here within the last 3 months, the White House reached out to Knob Noster School District and called on 2 of our art students to be selected to have their artwork displayed in a new art display attributing to military families and military children that is in the White House. So whether it's STEM programming, robotics, arts, our students are really knocking it out of the park, and we couldn't be more proud. To that point, the National Defense Authorization Act now requires that all branches of service measure the quality of education serving their installations. We're proud to say that the Air Force was out in front on this initiative all the way back in 2019 when they conducted their inaugural study on the quality of education serving all 157 installations across the country. We were very proud to report that when the tallies were done, Wimer Air Force Base came out number 1 on that study. At the heart of that was the resident school district of Wimer Air Force Base, which is Knob Noster Public Schools. Again, we're very proud of that result. In many ways, we're getting it done, but in many ways, we're also just getting started. So we're going to talk about money a little bit later. Obviously, we're going to our local voters to ask for support through increased taxes. But I want to kind of tell the story of how we've gotten to where we are today and where we've found money prior to coming to our taxpayers to help support this program. Our Board of Education over these last 8 years has been very deliberate to say that our taxpayers will be the last place that we will go to ask for support financially. But they've also felt that it is not unreasonable to ask our taxpayers to do their fair share to support our operations here in the school district, including our capital projects. Back in 2016, the district was very fortunate to receive one of its first grants, a $400,000 grant from the National Math Science Initiative to embed advanced placement into our high school. That really was the catalyst that got the ball rolling for some of the things that are going on in our district now. And it was the start of a very healthy, thriving relationship between Knob Noster Public Schools, Wimer Air Force Base, and the Department of Defense Education Activity. As you can see, in 2017, the district was successful in securing another $1.25 million grant to introduce robotics into our school district and to expand Project Lead the Way. The next year, the district in 2018 received a $1 million DODIA grant to embed leadership, kindergarten through 12th grade. Of all the things that are important to us, academics are near the top of the list, but developing high quality citizens tops the list. We embed both leadership and character education into our school programs, and it is absolutely one of our top points of pride across our school district and community. In 2020, let me back up to 2018. There's another here in the middle, a very important piece that we want to highlight, and that is the Edmentum Ed Options Academy. Think back in 2018 when the world was a little more normal. We were moving down the tracks of standing up a virtual school. Little did we know at the time what was coming in 2019 and 2020 with the pandemic. And because of this grant making and because of the action of the district, we were able to essentially already have a virtual school on the shelf ready to go and deploy. And it only took us 5 days with our outstanding team to move from traditional in-person instruction to 100% virtual instruction. And again, we thank the DODIA grant making for allowing that to happen. Moving into the pandemic era in 2020, we're pleased to say that we opened the doors to the Little Wingman preschool program through the support of another $1 million DODIA grant. And that program has not only opened in 2020, but it has expanded in the number of sections over the last 3 years. Why is that important? The availability of preschool was one of the key requests from our community and our service members at Wimer Air Force Base, and it's something that took the district a while to achieve, but we were pleased to say through that support of the grant we were able to open those doors. In 2022, we added on our largest grant, which is a $1.75 million grant to expand cybersecurity, Project Lead the Way, and some accreditation metrics for our district. Last year in 2023, we secured another $1.25 million grant to expand world languages, kindergarten through, actually pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. And then this year we are aligned to receive another $1.25 million grant through DODIA to support recruitment and retention of high quality staff. So think tuition support, reimbursements, additional money in our teachers' pockets to again try to allow us to continue to recruit and maintain high quality educators. Altogether, these grants represent nearly $9 million pending the grant for this spring, and a lot of those grants helped offset ongoing salaries, benefits, and operational costs of the district. So those grants allowed us to use some of our operational capital and put that in as a placeholder to support this capital project. Currently, we have over $12 million in grants that have been either submitted or are in queue to submit, again to demonstrate that we are looking in all possible locations that we can to support our operations before we go to our taxpayers. So now we're going to transition into the why. I think the question is on a lot of our community, the minds of our community members, is why do we need a new high school? And I hope that you'll tune in here and really track the progression that's happened over the 8 years that have led us to this point, and some of the rationale and the why that has led the board to put this proposition in front of you. First off is safety. We know that safety is on the minds of all of our community members, all of our teachers, admin, and Board of Education, and most of our students. I am pleased to say, not part of this project, but I am pleased to say that we have recently entered into an agreement with the City of Knob Noster to provide a school resource officer for the district, which is something that we've again heard from our community. We've listened, we responded, and now delivered on that. So we're very excited about that part as well. But when it comes to facilities, safety is also embedded into this project. At the center of our high school campus that is being proposed is a monolithic dome gymnasium, which is also in the form of a FEMA approved storm shelter. So this will be the hub for, in the instance of a tornado or other inclement weather, this will be open 24/7, whether students are in the building, whether it's midnight or 2 a.m. We will work with our local first responders to make sure that we have that building accessible at all times to protect life ahead of and during an event. This structure will also serve as a post-incident command post in the instance of an unfortunate event, which could be weather related, it could be a different type of situation. This will be a hardened, safe structure to facilitate those operations. It also again comes in the form of a collegiate style dome gymnasium. So if you've been to Archie or Stover or Ray-Pec to see their similar structures here in the region, it will be similar to that, although our footprint is quite a bit larger. And that will provide for a much more user-friendly space for both our student athletes, our performers, as well as those who are in the stands. If you've been to graduation lately, you know that if we hold it inside, you get very, very close to your neighbor. Hopefully it's family and friends, but it is very tight to fit something like a commencement into our current facilities. If approved by voters, we will have a nice facility that will comfortably be able to house commencement or other large events, and providing a great level of additional comfort and a more enjoyable experience for our community. But first and foremost, it is a hardened safety structure, and it is supported by a $5.25 million grant that has been secured by the district in December of 2023. That represents the largest grant in the history of this program that has been awarded to a school project. So we're very thankful for that. And again, that will stack into the funding strategy that we will talk about in some later slides. Next up is growth. You may not be aware, if you've been into our buildings, you probably are aware, but if you're not, we want to report that over about the last 5 to 6 years, we've seen a 35% growth in student enrollment within the district. So we've moved from about 1,400 students back in 2015 to over 1,900 students in last year, and we continue to grow. We are also looking at 2 key factors that we believe will continue to drive student growth and enrollment. Number 1 is the upcoming bed down of the B-21 stealth bomber. If you aren't tuned in, the B-21 is slated to replace the B-2 here at Wimer Air Force Base, and we are tracking numbers that show a potential growth of about 250 to 300 students, many of which we expect to attend schools here in Knob Noster. Second on the list is open enrollment. The Missouri General Assembly continues each year to push for open enrollment. This year it just passed out of the Senate and is over in the House side of the Assembly, and they are weighing in on that. If open enrollment hits, we expect that we will continue to receive requests for students to attend our district. Almost daily, if you talk to our building secretaries or our folks here in central office, or if you checked my email, you would see that parents are hearing the stories about what's going on in Knob Noster. We have created our district as a destination of choice in the region, and a lot of people are wanting to have their students be a part of this and experience what it's like to be a Knob Noster Panther. With this proposal, if approved, we will move from 4 campuses to 5 campuses. So how will that work out, and how will that impact our current operations? Number one, if approved, this new high school will create 550 additional seats for students. Currently at our high school, we're at about 440, 450 students. Those students, 9 through 12, would transition up to the new high school campus. Our middle school students, so 6, 7, 8, would actually transition over to our current high school. And then the current middle school would become an upper elementary. So think 3, 4, 5 or 4, 5. Moving those students out of our elementary buildings will do a number of things. First, our buildings are overcrowded. At Knob Noster Elementary, we are serving about 80 students beyond what is comfortably servable at that building. So we're overcrowded at Knob Noster Elementary. Wimer Elementary has over 600 students being served. It's about 120 over capacity. Because of that, we've brought in some mobile units at Knob Noster Elementary. We also have mobile units serving the high school, which is overcrowded. But in all, creating that space allows us a strategic shift of students upward, and it addresses the overcrowding in our elementary schools, while also opening up space to expand our preschool services at Knob Noster Elementary. The other less direct, but also one of the strategic pieces of this project is our Board of Education hopes that a project like this will serve as a catalyst for residential growth in our community. We have a number of parcels of land that have been platted for ongoing residential development. We have several pieces of land to the north side of 50 that we are aware would make nice residential development communities. And we're hopeful that if approved, this project will serve as a hub and a catalyst for that growth. We've met with a number of realtors over the last several years, developers, and I assure you there's a heightened level of interest in what is going on in our community, and especially with this project. I don't often drive down DD. I usually take Highway 50, but every now and then I'll take a cruise down DD Highway. If you haven't done that recently, I would encourage you to do so and look at the growth of residential units between Highway 23, well, the edge of the park, out to the Warrensburg High School. There are lots of residential communities that are popping up along those lines, and it's something that we feel would be a nice fit here in our community, again, to help drive our population, to begin circulating more dollars for our local businesses, and to, of course, continue to move our school in the right direction. Next up, we have some fast facts, and this is really some important pieces of information that tell the story with numbers more than words on kind of where we are right now. We're going to start out with total fund balances. Back in 2014, the district had right at 7.5 million in total fund balances. Because of the grant writing and some other strategic activities of the district, we've had a high level of success in growing those fund balances. We closed 2023 on June 30th with $25.7 million in the bank. We expect to be close to $30 million this year of cash on hand, and we're going to talk about how we're going to use that money to support this project and other strategic priorities of the school district. Next up, we talked about our student enrollment. Again, we've seen about a 36% growth in student enrollment, up from just over 1,400 students to over 1,900 students, with many more to come. Currently, the district is the largest employer in the community other than Whiteman Air Force Base. We employ over 275 staff members here to run our program. Of those staff members, approximately 50% have either direct or past immediate contact with service in the military. So about 50% of our employees are military connected, and about 70% of our total student population is military connected. So we are a very military centric school district, but we also cater to our civilian student population that is not represented by the military. The average age of our buildings is 62 years old. That's actually maybe a little bit lighter than it could be if we took into account the original high school that's now part of the middle school. But in general, our buildings are running about 62 years old on average. Our high school is about 61 years old and is definitely in need of a facelift and a repurpose. The total tax rate right now, and again, we will talk about this in detail later in this presentation, we are running just shy of $3.45 on our local tax rate. That is among the lowest in the region and is approximately 35% below the regional average. The proposal for Prop K would ask the voters to increase the tax levy by $1.30, which would move our local tax rate into the average of the region. So think Lexington, Lafayette County, Holden, Richmond, Concordia, Windsor. Look around the region and think that what the board is asking in this proposition doesn't move us to the top like some that you will see on a list, but it moves us into the average region in the middle. Again, we're about 35% below the regional average. We're asking to move just a couple of cents above the regional average, which we think is a very, very fair ask. With that support, it will fund 28% of the project cost, with 72% of the project cost coming from federal sources. So for every dollar, if approved, every local dollar that is put into this project, the community will receive almost $3 from the federal government to get this project across the finish line. It's quite the favorable value proposition. All right, so now we're going to have some fun and look at some photos, which hopefully will be of interest to you. Over about the last 2 years, our architects, Insight Design Studio out of Kansas City, have held planning charrettes with our high school faculty, our support staff, our administration, and others, our Board of Education, and they've taken all of the information from our employees and have blended that into the proposed high school plan. I'll tell you up front, it is a little bit more forward and modern than what maybe you or I would be comfortable with, but I would kind of set the stage to say, this isn't the same high school that you attended or that I attended. This is a high school that will be drawing in teachers that are currently 18, 19, 20 years old, and students that it will serve over the next 50 to 60 years. So it is a little bit more modern. It's something that we did intentionally to try to create a very welcoming, inviting, healthy workspace that will be an appeal for both our students, our families, and our employees alike. So it's been said that this is a little too modern, that it's a big difference between our current school, the way our current schools look, and what is being proposed. And it absolutely is. And we're going to talk about a few of those features, but I would also I would challenge you to think back to maybe when your parents or grandparents transitioned from the one-room schoolhouses that are out in our community into the original high school, which is still part of our middle school. That was a huge change, a huge transition, and a very different look. So these changes in how buildings look and how they serve are very common over the history of the school district. This is just the next version of that. So without further ado, here we go. Right off the front is an entrance that may give a little homage back to the 70s, but also lends itself towards a nod to a wing shape that is representative of our community that we serve out at Wimer Air Force Base. It's very modern and forward, with some of the external building features offering great value in construction and also long-range durability and low cost of ownership. When you walk into this school, it is going to feel very different than many schools. To the right as you walk in is the administrative suite, the offices to welcome students and visitors into the school. But immediately in the primary corridor, as you walk in, you look through some glass walls. You can see into our advanced manufacturing spaces, our cybersecurity spaces with esports soon to come, computer science. And then with our JROTC program, you'll see our aviation program with our flight simulator. Altogether, what that is demonstrating is that Knob Noster is currently and will continue to be a polytechnical high school, offering students the ability to do some really, really cool things as they transition out of high school into careers or college. What does that look like? It looks like a student graduating with a high school diploma from Knob Noster and a private pilot's license. It looks like that student's neighbor graduating with a high school diploma in one hand and an associate's degree to go on to be an educator or a doctor. It looks like their friend across the class graduating with a high school diploma in one hand and a certification to run a hospital to go directly into one of our manufacturing jobs. It looks like a student walking out with a cybersecurity credential and a diploma to go out and work on Wimer Air Force Base in one of the security or military areas. So lots of things going on in our school, very intentional to support our students to secure very lucrative jobs either on the base or in our region, allowing them to stay here in Knob Noster if they so choose to do so. Once you get through that main hallway, it opens up into some commons areas. If you blend off to the left, it will go into the cafeteria, common seating area. To the right, rolls into the library media center, and then we open up into our academic wings. And we're going to go through a few more pictures to share that. Again, in the center of the footprint for the high school is this monolithic dome gymnasium. The school actually will wrap around that, offering a very compact footprint, allowing students to get to and from class on time, hopefully without any tardies, but also allowing that traffic flow inside the building to be much more user-friendly. If you've been to our high school during passing times, or if you haven't, ask your child or a child's friend. It's definitely very tight, especially with the overcrowding within our current high school. This will allow a much more user-friendly experience on the inside of this building. The dome has a unified entrance to go into the dome gymnasium or into the football stadium. That allowed some efficiencies in design. So we have, for instance, a bank of restrooms that will serve both the stadium and the dome with interior and exterior entrances, allowing, again, a lower cost up front without duplicating those facilities, and a huge savings over the life of ownership of this project for cleaning and maintenance. The same applies on the other side of the entrance with a concession area, again, serving both inside the dome and our outside activities. For those with multiple kids in the district, if you have someone playing volleyball inside on a fall night and another student playing football on the outside, you can be back and forth within just a few steps. It also is zero entry into this facility, offering some great accessibility for any of our patrons or visitors who may be bound by some mobility restrictions. So if you have not heard, the board has selected a site. It is on the corner of Highway 23 and Smith Parkway, so just across from McDonald's and Dollar General. The district was fortunate to purchase the Smith property. That really began about probably 7-8 years ago over a slice of pie and coffee with Mr. Smith and one of our previous board members, Tom Hughes. Fortunately, that came to fruition with the district purchasing that property, and we now kind of horseshoe around to connect with our current high school baseball softball complex on the north side of 50. So there in the middle, we've been asked about MoDOT. It is currently in the middle of this footprint, but we are working with the state and have letters of endorsement over the last several years to relocate that out of our current footprint. So stand by, and that will be the next matter of business if this is approved. And then you can see the jot out on the east side of the property. There was a mobile home park that was previously on that spot. The district was able to procure about 10 acres there to essentially provide access from the campus footprint out to the east, connecting to the older State Street, and then opening into the current Whispering Hills subdivision, which is platted for a phase two, that we hope will see the residential development start to take place there. There's been a lot of question about traffic flow around this site. We know that Highway 2350 interchange is already very congested with the load from the base, especially in the mornings and afternoon. We are working with MoDOT to address that in the form of traffic lights on each side of that intersection. We also will be extending the third turning lane from Smith Parkway north to about where the MoDOT entrance is currently. That will be the piece that will help serve our school district campus, but those lights will really help with all of us as we travel through those intersections. We know it's pretty sticky. Continue to watch your left and right, but just know that help is on the way in that area. These are a number of letters of endorsement for this project and support that the district has received over the last 8 years. We've received multiple letters from Governor Parson. We had letters of support from both of our previous U.S. senators. We have letters of support from both current senators. We had our prior U.S. representative that wrote many letters of support, and we have our current representative who's written letters of support, along with members of the House Armed Services Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee. So we have lots of support locally, as well as in Jefferson City and in Washington, D.C., as we try to garnish both fundraising and fundraising to support this project. We're also pleased to say that we've received approval and support for the progression of this project from our last 5 school board presidents and school boards, as well as the last 5 wing commanders at Wimer Air Force Base. It's been a long time coming, and we're excited to be to this point. Now we'll go into a rendering of kind of what our inside the dome will look like. It is a 2-level dome gymnasium. We will enter into the top and be able to walk down into the seats. Along that top row, we also have accessible seating and a walking trail. That trail will be open to patrons during the day who have pre-registered to come in and get some indoor exercise. So today's a pretty nice day, about 60 degrees outside. It's a nice day to be outside. About 2 weeks ago, not so much. So this will be an amenity that will not only serve our school district and our community from a safety standpoint, but also from a recreational and health standpoint. As mentioned prior, you can kind of see in the background there that unified entrance to go into the dome, and then you can peel off to come into the stadium. It again will be zero entry, very user friendly. Here in the forefront of this picture, you can see kind of a learning stair outside, which will be reserved for special groups, band, maybe a pep club, something along those lines. And then as you come across this slide, you will actually walk down through the middle of the stadium to where you can walk down to be seated near the field, or you can walk up towards the press box to be seated on the upper side. So overall, a very user-friendly experience for our community and our visitors and our students. And we hope that these facilities will become the hub for large-scale athletic events like hosting districts or sectionals, to give our Panthers the home court advantage whenever they make it that far into the postseason. So keep up the good work in your practices, and you're going to have some great facilities if this is approved. Again, we've looked at kind of the front of the school design. We want to give a nod to Insight Design Studio, which is the district's architectural engineering team. They're originally a Kansas City-based company that has now spread to St. Louis and down into Springfield. It has quite the success story, specializing in public school construction. This is an example of a corridor, and this one specifically gives a rendering of our Air Force JROTC program. And we're going to talk a little bit kind of about what you see in this picture. So think of Walmart. You may or may not love Walmart, but one thing that they do look at is cost of construction and cost of ownership of their facilities. So when you go into newer construction sites for Walmart, you see the polished concrete floors. They're both affordable and offer a low cost of maintenance and ownership over the lifetime of that building. We're doing the same things in this building. The difference is there are new construction methods that you can add school colored of aggregate. So think orange, silver, black. That aggregate being put into the concrete, then grinded and polished, and it presents a little bit more like terrazzo. So it will be a very aesthetically pleasing experience for our students, but also offer that durability and long-term low cost of ownership and maintenance. If you look from the floors up to the ceiling, just like Walmart, you'll see a lot of skylights that are popped into the ceiling, allowing natural light into the facility. This is valuable for a number of reasons, from getting that natural light in and dropping down on some of the lighting bills, but also allowing that natural light to come in for a healthy learning environment and an overall pleasant experience. If you haven't been into our JROTC wing, I'll point out that we do have some embedded trophy cases to highlight some of the accolades. It's not just about basketball and football here, but our academic programs bring in their own hardware. I can already tell you that trophy case is going to need to be bigger because we continue to add these trophies into our spaces. But we will have those pieces embedded to, again, showcase the great things that are going on in our schools. This is a rendering of one of the commons areas. It kind of shows a flexible learning space with some students sitting kind of the edge of the cafeteria, where we would be coming out of the cafeteria sitting dining space into one of the commons areas. And then in the background, you can see a carpeted area, which is part of the Library Media Center. Again, you can see a blend through these photos of open ceiling designs down to the traditional drop ceiling designs. But it's, again, intended to be modern, not just to look fresh for today, but to continue to look fresh for the years to come. These are still renderings, so there will be some changes before the final project is completed, but this gives kind of a feel for what you'll expect in this facility. This is a rendering of one of the flexible learning spaces at the end of one of the academic wings. So with the new type of education that goes in to our high schools right now, there's a lot of small group learning that can happen in conjunction with differentiated instruction in our classroom. So we have a lot of small group from 2 to 3 to 5 to a group of 15 or 20 of flexible learning spaces that are integrated into this design. They serve as passing periods between classes, but they're also set for when classes are in session and the hallways are quiet, we can send groups out to take advantage of this space. And again, you can see the windows opening up to this campus. The piece of land is going to be quite beautiful by itself once it is finalized and finished. And we want to open up from inside the building to some of those outdoor learning spaces in the campus to really give a more aesthetic feel. Again, allowing that natural light to come into the building. I think this is one of our last slides, which is a rendering of our Library Media Center from some individual seating spaces looking out of that Library Media Center into one of the common spaces. There's been a question about safety and how we lock these buildings down. Safety features are embedded into this new design, similar to some of the safety features that we have installed in all of our campuses. But safety will continue to be at the forefront of thought as we look to secure this building in the best way that we can for now and into the future. So that's it for the slides of the renderings of the new high school. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about the tax impact for our local voters if this is approved. So we talked briefly about our reserve funds, and we just want to kind of put that in linear form for you. You can see about 20 years ago, the district had in reserves about $3.5 million. Again, back in 2014, we were at about $7.5 million. We increased that to $9.7 million in 2015. Last year, we ended with right under 26 million, and we expect that we'll be close to 30 million by the end of this year. So we've worked very hard through our grant writing, through some one-time funds from COVID to drive these fund balances up to support this project and the other capital project needs of the school district. Each year in August, the Board of Education sets the local tax rate for the year. And for each of the last 8 years, the district Board of Education has seen this comparison. This is a list of 34 school districts in the region that we compete with for families, for students, and for employees. You can see that near the top, we have our neighbors in Warrensburg that are up near the top. You can see the green space in the middle. So think Leeton, Crest Ridge, Odessa, Pleasant Hill, Holden, Higginsville, Concordia, that are kind of in that average range. And then down at the bottom, you can see where Knob Noster falls. Just each year of the last 8 years, Knob Noster has been at or near the bottom with our local tax rate. Proposition K asks our voter to move from the bottom of the region into the average of the region. It does not ask us to take our vote to the top levels of the region, but it does ask our voters and provides them the opportunity to support Knob Noster School District at the same level of support that Holden Eagle taxpayers support Holden, the way Husker taxpayers support Lafayette County, and how Minuteman taxpayers support Lexington. If approved by voters, this tax levy will produce approximately $1 million a year or $20 million over 20 years to support the project. This will fund 28% of the project, with 72% coming from federal funds. So now how does this stack up? So the total project cost is right at $70 million. So we're going to kind of go through how we get to that number from a funding standpoint. First and foremost, as of today, the district has invested approximately $3 million in this project. That includes the land acquisition that we previously discussed, as well as design documents with our architects and engineers to get this to ready to be a shelf-ready project if approved by our voters. Next up is the Federal Emergency Management Act grant. Again, that's a $5.25 million grant that will support specifically that monolithic dome gymnasium storm shelter at the center of this project. Of the roughly $30 million that we expect to have on hand at the end of this fiscal year, approximately $11 to $12 million will be pulled from those funds to support this project. So that leaves approximately $18 million in reserves. And I want to talk about where that $18 million will go. About $8 million of that is held in unrestricted funds as a measure of a board directive and of a measure of a standard for the state. Typically, school districts want to keep about 3 to 4 months reserve in unrestricted funds for unforeseeable events. So a catastrophic loss, a change in legislation that would cause a significant increase in teacher salaries, a spike in benefits when we have a down year with our health services. Maybe we have a storm and we lose a number of HVAC units where we have to pour $1 million into that. Of course, we do have insurance, but some unexpected circumstances would draw down on those reserve funds. For the last probably 6 years, the district has maintained that 35% fund balance in unrestricted funds, and we want to maintain that going forward. So that leaves about $10 million of discretionary funds in the district's account. The board will have a number of levers that they can pull or push with that money, but a couple of things to keep in mind is we still have 4 campuses, and we have held off on spending some needed money on those campuses until we know where this project is going to go. If this is approved, the board would then take some of those additional reserve funds on hand and do some of the needed upgrades to our facilities. So the question is, why haven't we done that along the way? And that's because if Knob Noster Elementary, if this is approved, Knob Noster Elementary will no longer serve 4th graders or 5th graders. It will serve pre-kindergarten students up to maybe 2nd or 3rd grade. How we remodel that building to serve as a lower elementary would look very different than how it would look if we were serving as an upper. The high school campus, we know we have some needed improvements in ADA upgrades for accessibility, as well as some of the common spaces in that building. Bathrooms have become a big topic of focus over the last several years. We know all of our buildings could use an upgrade and modification in our bathroom spaces. And there are just a number of things, from roofs to some HVAC units, that we're holding those funds so that we can address, so that if the voters approve this project, all 5 of our campuses come up to an improved level of service for our students. There is also enough funds there that depending on where this project comes in, there will be a number of options that can be pulled off of the project or added to that would draw in on those discretionary funds. So that's a question that's been asked, and we wanted to address that. Next up is the federal impact aid. The largest chunk of this project will be supported from federal impact aid, $30 million over that 20-year time frame. Impact aid, if you aren't tracking, is the federal aid that comes out of Washington, D.C. to support the school district operations. It is tied to the number of military-connected students that the district serves. So those families that live on Wimer Air Force Base, many of those maintain their residence in other states. They don't pay local taxes, and that's where Uncle Sam has stepped in since the 1950s to provide school district support through federal impact aid. Last but not least is the request from the Knob Noster taxpayers for the proposed Proposition K to provide $1 million each year for the next 20 years. Again, that will fund 28% of the project. And that's how we arrive at the bottom line of $69.6 million for the proposed project. As mentioned previously, we are anticipating the record of decision to be announced on the B-21, the new bomber, sometime this fall. We are tracking a number of funding line items that we may be able to take advantage of once that decision is made. If we are wildly successful in securing more federal funds to support this project, that will allow our Board of Education to roll that tax levy back. We do expect that will happen. We do expect that our tax rate will roll back over time, but we are asking our voters to take an educated leap of faith, to educate yourselves and cast your vote. If this is approved, it will provide these things for the district. We actually have another presentation that is dedicated almost entirely to the discussion about how your taxes will be impacted. We have a lot of slides like this one, and we just want to use this one as an example. So look for that video to be forthcoming very soon. This is an example of how the Proposition K will impact residential taxes. So up on the top, we kind of have a range of house values. So if your home is valued at about $100,000, Proposition K will increase your taxes by about $256 a year, or 70 cents per day. If you live in a home that's $500,000, Proposition K will increase your taxes approximately $1,280, or about $3.50 a day. So again, it is a significant increase, but I want to again keep in mind that we're moving from a tax rate that is 34% below the regional average to just a few cents above the regional average. And with every one of those dollars that's contributed, we'll get approximately $3 in return from the federal government to support this project. I have a happy meal up here because I wanted to pick something that we can all, some of us can relate to. I can relate to it maybe more than some of you. It does relate well to many of our kids. But for my taxes, with the properties I own and my vehicles, all in, my household taxes are going to increase about $5 a day. I assure you that is very fair and reasonable for my household. Most of our households in the district, we have looked at where our taxpayers fall. We're expecting that 70-cent range to maybe $2 a day on average for most of our taxpayers. Again, we feel that's a very, very fair ask and a very, very good value proposition in terms of the return on that investment. I have a couple of slides here at the end. I want to make sure that you guys know who your current Board of Education is. Again, this project has spanned over multiple boards over the last 8 years. So there are a lot of board members that have served that are no longer on the board, and some that have been here for the entire process. That know where we've been, how we've developed this proposal, and where we're going if approved. But currently we have Grant Jones as our president, we have Paul Hills as our vice president, Paul Birchie as our treasurer, Casey Cunningham as our secretary, and then we have members Cliff Everts, Dan Pendilli, and Candy Howard. I would encourage you to reach out to your board members. If you have any questions, you can also reach out to myself. Call, email, drop by the district office. We absolutely want to engage with you. But I also would encourage you to give your board members a pat on the back. It's a hard job sometimes. Our board has done an exceptional job of helping provide the support, resources, and guidance that have allowed our students and our teachers to knock it out of the park in so many different ways. But it is a hard job, and especially when it comes to a project like this that hasn't been done since the 60s, our board is taking a very bold step forward, not just for today, not just for tomorrow or next week, but for the next 50 to 75 years and beyond for our school district. So it's a hard thing for them to do, just as it is a hard decision for you to make on April 2nd. But I would encourage you to reach out to them, and whether or not you agree or not, I thank them for their service, and I know our community is very blessed to have that kind of leadership and governance over our school district. I want to talk just a little bit about myself. Oftentimes when superintendents place a tax levy measure in front of a community, it becomes personal, and I want to say thank you to the community so far. It's been a very respectful dialogue over these last 8 years, and especially the last 2 months. But we're doing our job both inside the school and beyond to try to grow our community and support our installation. Currently, in addition to superintendent, I serve as vice president of Wimer Area Leadership Council. I'm on the board of directors for the Whiteman-based Community Council. I am a education chair for the Association of Defense Communities, vice chair for Military Child Education Coalition, and I serve on the advisory council for Five and Thrive. Why do I do these things, all of which are military affiliated? Because we are in large part a military affiliated school district, from our employees to our students to the families we serve. All of these efforts are focused on two things: providing the best opportunities that we can for all of our students here in Knob Noster, and doing our part to support those service members who provide the freedoms that we all enjoy each and every day. With that concludes my presentation. I want to say thank you for taking time to join in today. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out, drop by the office, send a phone call, a letter, a message. We would very much love to sit down and talk with you ahead of April 2nd. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and go Panthers.